Are villains always evil, or are they often victims of their own tragic pasts? In this episode of Stair of Talk, we explore the concept of villains as tragic figures, characters shaped by trauma, loss, and misunderstandings. Rather than being born evil, many villains start out as ordinary people, pushed to the edge by heartbreaking circumstances. We'll dive into the tragic backstory, how personal trauma, whether through loss, betrayal, or societal rejection, molds individuals into villains. Misunderstood motives, exploring how some villains believe their actions are justified or righteous, even though they lead to harm. The thin line, how the same tragic experiences that create villains could have just as easily produced heroes, depending on their choices. Sympathy for the villain, why audiences often feel for tragic villains, and how these complex backstories make them more relatable. Famous examples, from Darth Vader, Star Wars, to Killmonger, Black Panther. We'll look at iconic tragic villains whose pain shaped their darker paths. Join us as we explore the idea that villains might not always be evil at heart, but are often victims of their own pain, trauma, and misunderstood intentions. The origin of tragic villains. How trauma and tragedy can turn people into villains instead of heroes. Misunderstood characters. Villains who are seen as evil but have deeper, often relatable motivations. The role of empathy. Why tragic backstories make villains more complex, and why audiences sometimes root for them. Hero versus villain. Parallels. How heroes and villains often share similar tragic roots, but make different moral choices. Iconic tragic villains. Examining well-known villains from film and literature who embody this archetype. Subscribe to Stair of Talk for more insightful videos.